All right, let's dive into one of the most talked about and honestly, one of the most controversial diets out there right now, the carnivore diet. This is a plan that pretty much strips away everything we've been told is healthy and asks a really radical question. What if we've been getting nutrition all wrong? So, could an all meat approach really be the secret key to unlocking our ancestral potential for peak health? Or is it just a modern fad, a dietary dead end with some pretty serious risks? That's the huge question we're going to explore today. And we're going to look at it from every angle. Let's get right into it. So, first things first, to even begin to understand the debate, we need to get crystal clear on what this diet actually is. What are the actual rules of the road if you're going full carnivore? At its very core, it's brutally simple. The carnivore diet gets rid of all plant-based foods, and I mean all of them. No fruits, no vegetables, no grains, no nuts, no seeds. If it didn't come from an animal, you don't eat it. Period. And you can really see that stark divide right here. In the in column, you've got all kinds of meat, fish, eggs, and animal fats like tallow and lard. Some people will include a bit of dairy like butter or hard cheese. But then you look at the out column, and it's a huge list of foods we eat every day. This is an elimination diet in the most extreme sense of the word. So what's the big idea here? Well, proponents argue this isn't some new fad at all, but actually a return to our ancestral roots. This quote really gets to the heart of it. The idea that humans evolved for millions of years as hyper-carnivores, thriving on fatty meat, not on plants. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's talk about what this actually looks like on a plate. Because it's not just about eating any meat, it's very much about eating the right kind of meat. And here's the crucial point that a lot of people miss. The carnivore diet is a high-fat, ketogenic diet. The main fuel source isn't protein, it's fat. The whole goal is to get somewhere between 70 and 80% of your daily calories from fat. That forces your body to switch its fuel source, to start burning fat for energy in a process called ketosis. This chart really drives that point home. See how that high-fat goal completely dictates your food choices? To hit that 70 to 80% target, you have to pick the fatty cuts. It's why a ribeye, with 77% of its calories coming from fat, is basically considered the king of the carnivore diet, while a lean flank steak, down at 36%, just isn't going to cut it as your primary fuel. Okay, so we've established that fatty steak is the foundation. But what about all the other vitamins and minerals our bodies need to function? This is where the whole nutrient puzzle gets a lot more complex. To fill in those nutritional gaps that you get from ditching all plants, proponents turn to what they call nature's multivitamin, organ meats. Things like liver, heart, and kidney are seen as these incredible nutrient-dense powerhouses, absolutely packed with vitamins like A and B12 and minerals like iron and copper. But that's not the whole story, not by a long shot. Even with organ meats in the mix, critics point to a pretty major challenge, getting enough of certain key nutrients. Without any plants, you lose your main source of things like vitamin C, potassium, and folate, which are just way less common in animal foods. And this leads to a really fascinating debate over what nutrient density even means. Critics will correctly point out that if you look at nutrients per calorie, vegetables like spinach are absolute champions, no contest. But proponents flip the script. They say, let's look at nutrients per serving. They argue that since you're eating a huge steak, not a huge bowl of spinach, the meat actually delivers more overall nutrition in a real-world meal. It's a really interesting way to reframe the conversation. Now, for anyone who's ever thought about actually starting this diet, there's a really well-known hurdle you have to clear first. It's a transition period that, it can feel pretty rough. It's known as the carnivore flu or the keto flu. And let's be clear, it is not a virus. It's a collection of symptoms. We're talking fatigue, headaches, muscle cramps, maybe some brain fog, that happen as your body goes through this massive metabolic shift from burning carbs to burning fat. The biology behind it is actually a pretty simple chain reaction. Step 1, you cut the carbs. This immediately signals your kidneys to start flushing out excess water and, this is the crucial part, sodium along with it. Step 3, this flushing effect then depletes other key electrolytes, like potassium and magnesium, which leads directly to all those nasty flu-like symptoms. So, what's the solution? Well, according to advocates, it's all about aggressive electrolyte management. The idea is to consciously put back what your body is flushing out. You've got to replenish things like sodium, potassium, and magnesium to counteract that effect and make the transition smoother. This is why you'll often hear carnivores talk about adding a lot of high-quality salt to everything. Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the how-to from the carnivore point of view. Now it's time to turn to the other side of the coin, the really significant concerns and warnings that are coming from the mainstream medical community. And these concerns are pretty serious. Doctors and dietitians tend to point to 4 major areas of risk. First, heart disease, because of the super high intake of saturated fat. Second, those nutritional deficiencies we just touched on. Third, major digestive issues from having absolutely no fiber. And fourth, the potential strain on your kidneys from processing so much protein day in and day out. Let's just pause on this number for a second. 0. A strict carnivore diet contains 0 grams of dietary fiber. For pretty much any nutritionist or doctor, this is a massive red flag. They have major concerns about what that does to your long-term gut health, and some point to a potential increase in the risk for colon cancer. And this quote from registered dietitian Susan Campbell really sums up the whole clinical perspective pretty well. The diet is seen as extreme, it carries a whole host of health concerns, and for the vast majority of people, it's just not a sustainable way to eat in the long run. So, where does that leave us? We've basically got 2 completely opposite stories being told here. One is of this ideal, ancestral way of eating, and the other is of a risky, modern experiment. So how are we supposed to weigh this evidence? And it really does boil down to these 2 camps. Proponents see it as the ultimate elimination diet, a way to remove modern processed junk and potentially inflammatory plant compounds to let the body heal. On the flip side, critics see an extreme, unbalanced plan that completely cuts out essential food groups, creating serious nutrient gaps and potential long-term health risks. Which brings us to our final central question. After looking at all the arguments, is the carnivore diet a powerful ancestral reset for our modern bodies, or is it a high-stakes gamble with our long-term health? The sources present a really stark choice, and the answer remains one of the biggest and most heated debates in nutrition today.